Welcome to episode 105 of Silver Lining for Learning. This is a really interesting episode. It's on quality. And we all know that the author of Zen and Motorcycle Maintenance went crazy trying to define what quality is. So we will not promise to define quality in this next hour, but we will give some hints as to what it entails when you're creating online learning environments. Quality matters. Quality matters when Young and Chris, Punya, and I are creating new online courses at Kansas, at Harvard, at ASU, or at Indiana. Quality matters when we have COVID epidemic over and over and over, and kids in the K-12 schools are finding themselves in online environments throughout the day. Quality matters when young people are bullied in school and find that they have to learn online and not attend school. When expats get their kids taking online courses when they're out of country, quality matters. Quality matters all the time. And we're lucky to have three directors of Quality Matters with us today. Bethany's with us, Yaping is with us, and Christine is with us. And Christine will be talking about research and innovation because she's the director of it.
No, that's me.
We'll hear from Bethany, who's the director of research and innovation. Christine is the director of K-12 programs, and Yaping, who's the director of member services and partnerships. Quality matters when Hurricane Katrina hit Mississippi and Louisiana, and they had banned online learning until that happened. Quality mattered when Snowmageddon hit Washington, D.C., and all of a sudden they're putting courses up online. Quality mattered when H1N1 struck. Quality mattered when Haiti got hit with earthquakes, and all of a sudden they had online Haiti. You know, we're reactive creatures, we're not proactive. But these people from Quality Matters will help us be proactive in thinking about planning the new innovations that we might have in our programs, in our courses, in our everyday life. And so I'll cede control over to the three of them and let them describe what they've been up to, what they've accomplished, what they hope to do in the future. And what they'll show you is how you can get involved in Quality Matters, because quality does matter. Yaping?
Thank you so much, Kurt, for the wonderful introduction. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen real quick here. And if you can tell me if you can see it. You can see it? Okay, great. So thanks again, Kurt, for providing this wonderful opportunity for us to be here to engage with your audience. And thank you for your wonderful introduction, why quality matters. So by now, we can all agree quality does matter in online education and digital learning. So just a quick introduction about QM and who we are and what we do to support the education community. QM is an international nonprofit organization. We are based in US and we serve the K-20 education community across the world. As you can see on this map, we have over 1,500 member institutions in more than 30 countries across the 6 continents. We also have a few hundreds of individual members. Although most of the QM community, QM member institutions are in USA and North America, our member institutions, our community is actually becoming increasingly diverse. So as you can see on this one, we have a few photos taken at the various QM conferences, events, or otherwise engagements, mostly in Mideast, Asia, and the Latin American regions. We're so very proud of the community. In a nutshell, QM provides an adaptable and a scalable quality assurance process, which has been adopted, and implemented as an international benchmark for the community to ensure quality online and digital learning. Again, QM serves K-20 education community. Our focus is indeed on quality teaching and quality learning. The major components of QM include 1, research-supported rubric standards for K-20 to ensure quality course design. Two, a wide variety of professional development offerings and pathways for faculty, teachers, staff, and administrators based on their roles and the goals they want to achieve. Third, a robust peer review and certification process for both courses and programs. Our mission is to support institutions to help their students succeed and to provide quality evidence for institutional accreditation and advancement. Over the years, the QM community has shared with us that how QM's rubric standards, professional development, and course reviews have helped them to ensure the quality of their course offerings. And we have a lot of research that have shown positive impact of QM certified courses on student learning. At the program level, QM's program review and criteria help institutions to benchmark their online programs in 4 integrated parts. The first part is program design, which is the core academic curriculum. Part number 2, teaching support, how institutions are providing faculty and teachers with support before, during, and after teaching. Third, learner support, how institutions are providing resources and just-in-time support to help students successfully completing their programs. Last but not least, and actually is the most important part, is the outcome of all this investment in online program. That is the evidence of student success in online programs. In any institutional context, if we look at the academic curriculum, course offerings are, of course, the foundation. So if you are a teaching faculty, if you're a teacher, your focus is on helping students learn, achieve the learning outcomes. So objectives, assessment, quality content, student engagement, meaningful interaction, all of this are key elements in your teaching. So QM's course review and course certification, as well as faculty professional development, help institutions to ensure quality at the course level. At the program level, curriculum mapping, curriculum mapping, ensuring quality course level objectives aligned with program outcomes, competencies, faculty teacher support, student support, all of this are key to ensure student success. So QM's program review and certification ensure quality of teaching online at the programmatic level. At the institutional level, accreditation, enrollment, completion, institutional culture, governance, etc., etc. All of these are top priorities for administration. So implementing QM provides quality evidence on how quality assurance is being implemented and then managed in the institution in order to meet accreditation standards or criteria. And that is my quick QM intro. Here is a quick reference for our email. If anyone in the audience wants to learn more about QM, please email any of us. You can also reach out to Kurt and the Silver Lining for Learning team here, and they should be able to connect us. Okay, so with that, back to you, Kurt, to start our conversation. Thank you.
Well, would we like the other directors to introduce themselves briefly before we have a series of questions. We all have questions for you, in fact. And you know, my introduction was just brief. There are so many people impacted by Quality Matters and by not only your services, but just getting people to programmatically think about what is good quality online teaching and learning, as not just K-12 moved into pandemic teaching, but higher ed, corporate training, government training, military, every educational sector, you know, every student. And so it's an extremely important topic. So I want to give some time to Bethany and Christine just to give a minute or two about what you do and your role and anything you want to add to what Yaping had to say.
Sure. My name is Bethany Simunich, and as you mentioned, I'm the Director of Research and Innovation for QM. As Yaping mentioned, we have research-supported rubrics and standards. So that is one of the things that I do and that QM does. We have an updated research library, a research database that's publicly available. So all of you graduate students out there, especially who are looking for an easy way to search keywords, or especially for course design standards, please access that. But that is the research that is regularly scoured and updated, and then is then fed into the rubric, which is revised periodically. We're currently starting the rubric revision for the higher education rubric now. I'm also co-director of the CLOE report, the Changing Landscape of Online Education. And this is a joint survey report between Quality Matters and EduVentures. It uniquely provides the perspective of the chief online officer at higher education institutions in the US. So we're currently working on CLOE 7. We just got some data in, and I might be able to share some fresh data with you today.
I put the link into the stream to YouTube so people can have that.
Thank you.
Christine?
Oh, Bethany, that was a tease, sharing that CLOE data. Awesome. Yes, so thank you. My name is Christine Vogel. I am the K-12 program director at Quality Matters. So what my role really entails is to work with our K-12 members, which are sometimes educational service centers, they're intermediate units that service multiple districts, or they're a district who comes on and all of their schools are a part of Quality Matters, or they're just a single school. Could be a charter school, could be a public school. So I ensure that our members get the resources that they need from the other departments at Quality Matters. So we work very closely with like our professional development department, our course reviews, our quality assurance department. So I kind of make sure that everybody is on the right track, kind of helping them to figure out what their needs are with quality assurance and meeting them where they are. So as Yaping showed in some of those slides, we have such a wide variety of resources, wherever they're starting out, we can provide some structure and some accommodations so that it will help them to meet their goals. I also am the program manager for the National Standards for Quality Online Learning, and that is 3 sets of standards: the National Standards for Quality Online Courses, the National Standards for Quality Online Teaching, and the National Standards for Quality Online Programs. Those are K-12 focused standard sets. And I work very closely with our partners on that project from the Digital Learning Collaborative and the Virtual Learning Leadership Alliance.
I think we're going to jump in here with some questions for you, and Punya is going to take us the first crack. Go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for this introduction and telling us a little bit about Quality Matters. I need to apologize. I just got a message saying that my internet is unstable. So if there is an issue, just let me know. But again, 2 years of the pandemic, we have learned to live with things like that, and we just keep going, fighting along. So though, Kurt started by saying that, that we will not try to define the word quality, because that is, but again, that is the title, in the title of your organization. So I would like to hear a little bit from whoever of you want to speak about, like, how do we think about quality? Because, there is a lot of educational research out there, much of which we can sit and criticize as being misguided or asking the wrong questions. We can look at sort of the deeper values and commitments that we bring to the work that we do, which many standards and so on do not reflect or capture. So when you are deciding about, what should end up in your database, or what kinds of advice or research is valuable to keep, and which are the ones that are not worthwhile for whatever reason. So there is a deeper sort of an interrogation of what I'm asking to understand is not the definition of quality per se, but how do you determine? So there have to be some broadly understood or shared values within the organization of what you think is important when it comes to education, right? And one can question whether existing educational systems are doing the best in that regard or not. So how do you guys determine that? What are the sort of guidestones or signposts that you use to think about that this is quality and this is not, right? And so I just want to understand that a little better before we sort of move forward.
That's the $1 million question, I would say. What is quality? So thank goodness that you started off by saying you're not going to ask us to define it, but instead, how does Quality Matters talk about it, think about it? How do we approach it? Rather than taking a narrow view of quality and just looking at a particular course and saying, is this a quality course? I think it's better, and this is QM's view as well, to look at it in a more robust, holistic 360-degree way. So as an example, one of the things that we talk about at QM is called the quality pie. And what we're really trying to communicate with that is that course design, which is something that the QM rubric concentrates on, and evaluating the quality of that course design, that's just one facet of quality. So if I'm a faculty member and I'm coming in to teach my first online course, and let's say that it is a well-designed course, but I'm unprepared, I can't make up for that just because it's a good design. So that's the other facet of quality, faculty development and preparation. But there's more that goes into that. There's student support. So do you have the things at your institution that are going to support your online students? Because a lot of times they are unique and they're separate from what you need to support your on-ground, your campus-based students. Other things like institutional infrastructure. Do you have the appropriate technology and tools? Course design at QM, we separate that conversation a little bit from the content of the course. So as an example there in the QM rubric, when we're looking at content in an online course, we want to make sure that it's aligned. We want multiple types of content. We look at student engagement, but it doesn't specify what types, what specific content must be in the course, because of course that is up to academic freedom. So you may have two courses, they're both History 101. One uses exclusively a textbook. The other one has this engaging quality material. We're going out to websites from the Smithsonian or battle reenactments. And that makes a huge difference in student engagement and quality. But how do you really, talk about that in an objective way? So faculty development, student support, institutional infrastructure, course design, course content, those are some of the things that go into that online quality pie. I think what we really realized over the pandemic is that quality is not this singular thing. And when we're talking about an institution being prepared to serve up quality online learning for their students, we're talking about that robust 360-degree view where faculty are supported in effective online teaching, students are supported in effective online learning, and you have that institutional infrastructure to really buttress this whole effort.
So if I can jump in here, I think it's still begging the question of what you think is the purpose of learning or education, because I think that will determine how you think about quality. So one could be saying that, there are these existing institutions and we're going to take their goals as being important and we will try to create quality for those goals. Or do you have an agenda about that this is what we think the overall purpose of education is, and we're going to derive our quality criteria based on those goals, right? I'm just wondering about that. Like, do you come in with some kind of, I hate to use the word, but within quotes, agenda about what the purpose of educational learning is broadly? Is it to empower the institutions which are already doing certain work and say, we're going to strengthen them, right? I mean, does that make sense? So I'm asking like a bigger sort of purpose question about Quality Matters as an organization.
So I will take a step here first. That's a great question, and that's a $2 million question, not just 1 million. It depends who is asking the question, and it depends on what kind of stakeholders that you are trying to answer to. Okay, so if it's the president, Yeah, you know, institutional accreditation, enrollments, student success, all of this, right? If the institutions are, I mean, in particular in the US, if it's a not accredited institution, you cannot get the, you know, the government funding, and you're not going to get the students, not much, right? But if it's a parents, you know, they want to ensure that, you know, I'm sending my son, my daughter to this school, to this program, and, you know, I'm looking to that in the future, they're going to get a good job out of this. For students, they value the learning experience. I don't want to pay all of this money for this course, for this program, but when I start, I don't know what to do and how to go about things, or what do my professors want me to do. I'm lost. So it really depends. But as Bethany was saying, quality education is tied to the outcome. Why do we try invest so much into education? What is the outcome? The product are our students. By the end of a course, by the end of a program, have they really mastered the outcomes, the skills, the competencies that we promised they will learn? That sounds easy, right? But it takes the entire institution. It takes the entire village to raise a child. It takes the entire institution to help even one student succeed. So
Right.
earlier in my slide, it's a very simple pyramid, you know, course level, program level to reach the institutional goal. But at any point of time, if we cut across this pyramid at any level, horizontally, everybody is involved in order to make the student succeed, help the student succeed. And that's what Bethany was saying, 360-degree view on quality. So,
Christine, you were jumping
thank
in
you.
there, I
yes.
think.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a team effort, right? And there are so many of those factors that go into having a student be successful at your institution. And, you know, Punya, you were asking, what factors into that that student success, right? What makes that quality? We can look at it from the course level first, and we can say, okay, what are those outcomes we want the student to get out of this course? What do we want them to master by taking this course? And we can kind of work backwards from there, right? And we can say, we can look to the research, which has supported our rubric for course design, and we can say, these are the specific elements that need to work together in tandem in order for the student to really have a successful experience, in order for the student to have instructional materials that will help them to master those objectives of the course, to have the assessments that will, make sure that they have learned what they're supposed to learn in the course, to have the activities, and to make sure that everything is accessible. So a lot of times we'll use this word alignment. So one of the tenets of us is to make sure that everything is in alignment in the course and working together to help that student to succeed. But then, like Bethany and Yaping were saying, that's not the only thing, right? That's one aspect of it, because there's all the other things that are, working around in your institution to make that student successful.
Thank you.
Young, you're going to jump in here?
Yeah, I think Punya raised some really interesting questions. Punya, worth $3 million now. So I'm going to raise a $4 million question. What you guys are describing, here's, first of all, you have an organization to defend. You must defend what the organization does. Quality.org is an organization, Quality Matters. So you started, let's say 20 years ago, you are promoting your rubric, your standards, so I would agree with you. You guys have done a fabulous job defending what you're trying to do. So here's what my question right now has to do with what Punya's last one is about purpose, about goals. So I think all of you guys were saying, can a student be successful in a course, in an institution. And if they're successful, then we have quality. However, a student can be successful, let's say, from University of Phoenix. They can graduate, get a degree, but never find a job. And so you can say they're half successful, semi-successful, or in long-term successful. You also talk about kind of students learn what the course is supposed to learn. And I think Chris Didi just put something in there, like same dimensions as face-to-face instruction. So that's actually where my question will come in, is a lot of times a course is just a course. The content of a course does not necessarily have to be mastered. Instead, the content simply plots a curriculum, a resource, an experience for students to grow other abilities and other competencies. So I was wondering, by the way, I have to tell you, as I'm getting old, I have developed really an unhealthy distaste for standards and rubrics. So when I read about that, I said, oh my God, what are you guys trying to do? Because in higher education, as well as in K-12, we want our students to develop competencies a lot more than simple skills and knowledge. I'm sure you agree with that. So we have rubrics or standards. Don't you think you're homogenizing the learning and teaching experiences of all courses and instructors? I would hate for my course to be to have a rubric to say come down to, because we teach all the time, just to say, if someone, you mentioned about, academic freedom. So I was just wondering if you can reflect on that. Do you have the potential of homogenizing courses with rubrics and standards?
Excellent question. And I'll tell you.
$4 million question?
I'll give you that. Yeah. And I understand the knee-jerk reaction when educators hear standards and rubrics, and immediately our brain goes to, my course is going to look like everybody else's, or you're not going to, this rubric will not allow me to do pedagogically what I want to do in my course. It's not going to serve my students. But let me temper that by saying, the QM rubric, and I'm going to speak about the higher education rubric because that's my area. So it serves 1,500 higher education institutions across the United States. By its very nature, it is flexible, it is adaptable, and it is not rigid. So I think that there may be a hurdle in just hearing that word standard and saying, well, how does my course fit into that? Because when you look at the QM rubric standards, and the QM rubric is the standards and the annotations, and my initial question, whenever I get this question from faculty, because I've received it a lot, as you can imagine, I always ask them, what is it that you want to do in your course that you feel does not align well with the QM rubric? Or what standard in the QM rubric can you point to that you feel would not be beneficial for the students in your course? And I have yet to get a really good answer for that. And here's why. Because the rubric is not this, discrete little checklist, it really is born from decades of online learning research and from best practices. It's also regularly updated not by QM, but by online learning experts. And that means online teaching faculty, instructional designers, administrators in online learning who know the field, who have been doing this for decades. So without something like standards, because I understand completely how freeing it is to say, no standards for my course, and I don't want to be pigeonholed and everything. But without that, what do we see? We see courses that are not accessible for students. We see courses where faculty have received no support or training in how to lay out an online course because primarily they've been face-to-face instructors, right? So this is how I matured from face-to-face to online. I got my content and my assignments, and I thought, I'm just going to load this up in the learning management system, and this great educational experience is going to happen. And I'll tell you what, it didn't. I realized too late that I didn't know how to create a learning path for my students. I realized too late that communication and interaction are fundamentally different online. And without knowledge of things that are embedded in the QM rubric, I wouldn't know what's missing. So if you go
Bethany,
to the homepage of the QM, go ahead.
I won't jump in. Just play the game longer. So Yaping just sent me this checklist. Okay. So in one of them, the checklist, it says the course learning objectives or course program competencies describe outcomes that are measurable. Okay, that one I have a problem. Okay, you said that are measurable. So some of the outcomes are not necessarily measurable. So if I were subject to your rubric, as Chris said, all rubrics can be opportunities. But so how would I deal with that?
So how do you assess evidence of learning? I mean, you can think of it as measurable or observable, but I'll push back a little bit on this, and let's go back to a tried and true instructional design model, backward design, which pretty much everybody's familiar with, correct? So one of the tenets of backward design is that you can't really measure understanding unless it's through some other means. I can't simply say to one of my students, do you understand the material? And they're going to say, yes, Dr. Simunich, I do. And I'm going to say, great, you get an A. No, of course not. Instead, I have them do something, an assessment, activities and whatnot. And that is what I observe, or that is what I measure to assess, have you, what level of mastery have you achieved? Are you on your way to achieving these learning outcomes? So I'm going to throw that back to you a little bit and say, how do you assess your students if you do not observe or measure?
Well, for example, because we teach a lot, all of us here, we teach PhD students or EDD students. And one of the things I do is I don't grade students using A and B. I expect them to complete a product that is really cumulative of their experiences. You will meet this expectation and then you pass. Everybody get an A, or you ever get a pass. So in many ways, that measurability is varies a lot. So if you look at my syllabus of students, actually I negotiate my course content with students, and we do a lot more personalization of that. And so, but what the reason I'm asking you about this is so in one of the challenges we had many years ago, when I was examining standards, is that when the rubric is too stringent, it's easy to check. When it's too flexible, it's as if there are no standards. So you can have some very high level standards, you can have some low level standards. So what's the hot spot of standards? But you don't need to answer a question, because Christine has we can go on for another 5 hours, but we can debate about this. But I know Christine has a more serious question than what I had. Chris, go for it.
Well, I like where the discussion is going, but I'm going to try to frame it in a little different way. So all of us, when we're helping other people, face a tension between helping them do things better or helping them do better things. And I encountered this in many situations, but one of them is this National Artificial Intelligence Institute in adult learning and online education, where I'm a co-PI, and we're in our first year of 5, and we're sorting out what to do. The proposal basically that was funded said, let's build AI-based assistants to help instructors to convey content effectively. And that's what got funded. And obviously we have to respect that. And it's a worthy thing to do in the context of doing things better. Where I'm being a bit of a gadfly in the group is saying, yes, but we should expand on what we were funded to do by finding other money and look at doing better things. For example, student-centered rather than instructor and curriculum-centered, guided learning by doing rather than AI-based teaching by telling, and so on. And of course, that creates a lot of tensions, because you go out to many of the people that we wrote the proposal with who are on the ground teaching students. They're not interested in my views about what might be better. They want something that's going to help them tomorrow morning. So I'm interested in whether this is a dilemma that you see in your work as advisors, and how you handle, sort of having some of each, if you will, so that you're evolving with the doing better things, but you're not putting yourself out of business by ignoring what people want tomorrow morning.
I will take a first step at this, and I should have introduced myself earlier. I was just so eager to introduce QM. So in my current position, I do oversee and lead member services, but my other focus is really outreach into the international community outside USA and North America. So just let me give you this. Over the years, that's really pre-pandemic, actually. I get a lot of opportunities to engage with the community, as you see in the photos that I showed earlier. And everywhere I go, if this is the first time, I would just show them, this is the researcher-supported QM standard that's going to help you with your course design, help you with your teaching. And those folks, typically, they do not know about QM, or this is the first time they heard about this online education thing. So I typically had to spend half of my time convincing them that online learning is a thing, that you can actually do this, right? But I don't have to do it anymore. So back to your question, Chris, is that the community is evolving, and our standards of practice, our quality assurance process has been tested and has been adapted, has been implemented, in over 30 countries. And the best feedback I get, and every time I heard about this, I was secretly so happy. They were saying, oh, okay, so here are your standards, but why they are only for online? Why can I use those for my face-to-face? Because learning objectives, content, assessment, these are the core elements of online, of teaching and the learning, period, right? It's online, hybrid, synchronous, asynchronous. These are just a modality of how you, engage the students to learn. So as the community evolves, QM as a quality assurance organization, we also need to evolve. When 20 some years ago, when we first started, it was started by a consortium of 20 some universities in the state of Maryland. They were starting to do online education, but they do not know, okay, now how do we do this thing better, as you were saying? So they band together, come up with some studies and do some research. So here comes the QM standard. But we are at a point where, as Chris, you were saying, folks are so advanced, they are far in advance, they want more, and there's still a lot of people more focused on the technology. The technology is going to solve all problems, right? So, but we do not think so. We think technology should be the infrastructure, should be the background for teaching and learning. But the pedagogy, how you engage students, because AI, yes, certain things, like student support and calls, etc., these can help. Of course, they can. But that's why we want to put the research and time, into having those wonderful technology. But pedagogies, the professor is not going to go away. The college and the university is not going to go away. It's our job, with all of our expertise, all of our years of experience, teach and learn. It is our job to still, focus the community in what is the best for them. So we should be able to do, at the same time, help them to do things better in a better way, but also guide the community to do better things for our students in the future. And I know that's very not very concrete, but but all I want to say is we need to evolve with the community, but at the same time, we need to retain and insist what is the best for our students.
Bethany, do you want to jump in on innovation? Because it's mentioned in the chat here. and you're in charge of the innovation. So you want to address Chris's question?
Right. So in the chat for the benefit of the audience, Chris, you've typed there, technology is the catalyst, not the innovation. I would definitely agree with that. I would say in good quality online learning, technology follows, it doesn't lead. There is a reason why technology doesn't come up in the rubric until the 6th general standard, because it very much is pedagogy before technology. I think it's all too easy for us as educators to gravitate to the latest and greatest technology and think if we're using these great new tech tools, then we are great online teachers or we are serving our students in the best way. It's not true, because we have to consider things like cognitive load. We have to consider things like the digital divide. We have to consider things like online students need to have not only the right technology, but the skills to use them, right? And keep in mind when we're talking about what supports quality online learning, we are talking about issues of equity and access to across the country. It's not just for well-prepared students at well-funded institutions with great teachers, both face-to-face and online. This is for all students and all faculty at different levels of preparedness. So what does innovation mean for online learning? I think right now in the space and the place that we're in this, dare I say, post-pandemic or moving there, hopefully, but whatever we want to call this space and place, I think what we have now is an acknowledgement, is a realization that supporting online learning means supporting the people who are involved in online learning. That means supporting our faculty to teach well. Teaching online is distinctly different. It's a different type of classroom. Supporting our online students, learning online is different. You do need to be more self-directed. You do need to have better time management skills. Not all students have that. Not all students come prepared with that, or even have that as a level of awareness in order to be successful in online. And institutionally, technology, sure, is a big part of quality online learning. What learning management system you're using, what technology you have, what technology your institution supports, and how you support that. But it's not the lead, just like content is not the lead online. What is the value added portion of a quality online course? The instructor. Nobody goes to an institution because they're going to be sent to a publisher website and told which additional e-textbook to buy. They are there for you. And that is also something that Quality Matters really tries to hit home with educators, that it is your guidance, it is your explanation, it is your teaching that happens during the active running of that course that is vital to a quality online experience. What we saw during remote learning is also, I think, very akin to what we saw in the earliest days of online, and still persists in some ways today, in that instructors feel that online space is not an online classroom, but just instead a content repository. And it creates a very distanced experience for the students so that they don't feel part of a learning community. And everything that I just talked about, it's helped by technology, but it is not led by technology.
Absolutely. And I can chime in just a little example. Just earlier this week, Bethany and I had a very late night meeting with an institution in Singapore. Okay, think about it, Singapore. They have the cutting edge technology, everything, okay? But they are trying to do online learning, digital learning, but the course design is not there. And there's a very disconnection between the instructors who's trying to teach behind the screen, by the way, and then the students who were sitting in front of the computer and say, okay, I have all these tools, but okay, what is the professor talking about? Why am I listening to this? So they don't have the basic course design, the research support, the pedagogy, that's not there. At the same time, the instructor, they do not have enough. They are the content expert. They are the expert in their field, but they were not trained as online instructors, and they're not engaging. They're not effective. So no matter what fancy technology you have, teaching, learning is not happening because they're not meeting the needs of the students.
Can
Yeah.
I jump in just to share a little from the K-12 perspective here? A lot of times in our K-12 schools and districts, what we see is that they are getting their online course from a provider. So it's from a vendor who has developed that course, handing it off to the district, who may or may not know how to, look for a course, and they might just be looking for the bells and whistles, but really, what is the meat of that course, and is the student going to be, successful? Does it have all the elements? One of the things that we do is we do official course reviews, a lot of times for different states or districts who are looking to vet online courses that they're going to purchase, because they don't a lot of times have the capacity to build their own online courses. But the one thing still rings true in all of these situations, and that is that it's the teacher who's going to then bring that course to life. It's that facilitator who is there to help the student, get through that course, to teach those concepts in the course, utilizing those materials, but that still is that key aspect. Of course, they're going to do it better if that course is aligned, if that course is well developed, because they already have that structure in place. But one of the other things that we do is we offer professional development. We do have professional development for online teaching. So we do have a teaching online certificate, which does give people digital credentials for earning that teaching online certificate. So that's one of the ways that we help in that aspect as well.
Just was wondering, I just think I found this really interesting. So you issue certificates, you train them to get your certificates. Aren't you just the trainer and the credentialer at the same time? You're the judge, and at the same time, you're doing the same thing?
Very good question. I would
$5
say
million
absolutely
now.
not.
Okay.
and here's why. As Yaping said in the outset, we don't offer credentials or micro certificates. We have digital badges for faculty who complete faculty development, because faculty are busy and they took their time to further their online teaching, which is fantastic. But in terms of those course reviews, QM doesn't conduct them. They are peer reviews. They are conducted by online faculty, just as you have a peer review system for face-to-face courses. So QM does not update the rubric in isolation. We do not review your courses. We do not have your institutional data. It really is a for us, by us type of effort. Quality Matters was started by faculty. The first rubric was put together by faculty and researchers. Every rubric since has been updated, not by QM as the educational nonprofit, but by our community members who are experts in the field.
I have to say, you guys are very good. All right, go for it, Kurt.
Is going to jump in here before I have questions for you. So, Chris. I think you're muted, Chris.
I thought that you wanted to ask your questions first.
No, go ahead first. I'll go.
All right. So I'm going to tell you something that happened yesterday. We have a lot of celebrations at Harvard this month because of graduation, and there was a celebration for students in a master's program that I'm involved with, Learning, Design, Innovation, and Technology. And they lined up the faculty and they said, each of you has 1 minute to say something to the students. And so I'm going to tell you what I said to them in that minute. I said, once in a great while, the world pivots. And it's different afterwards. There's a sea change. So the Second World War created a sea change. And I said, you're living through a sea change now. The sea change is not the pandemic. The pandemic is going to eventually just recede in the way that all other pandemics have receded, but it's the lever that has forced the change. And the change is that the world is now hybrid. Work is hybrid, social life is hybrid, civic life is hybrid. The interactions between global North and global South are greatly strengthened by the infrastructure that countries have had to put in. Even people who intensely dislike online have had to learn how to cope with it, something that would never have happened in my lifetime otherwise. So I said, we're in Oz now. We're not in Kansas. And we're not going back to Kansas, even though there's a bunch of people who would like to. That is not possible. Most people like this shift. And I said, as people in LDIT, you are the wizards. It may not be great to be a wizard in Kansas, but it's terrific to be a wizard in Oz. And I'm saying the same thing to Quality Matters. So many people are trashing remote learning and saying it's intrinsically inferior. Unprepared teachers, inadequate infrastructure, student trauma, and false beliefs about remote learning is why it's ineffective, not because it's intrinsically ineffective. And you're going to be very important, I think, in providing a kind of bulwark against those kinds of criticisms and hopefully helping the wizards to adjust to Oz. So I think what you're doing is really, really important.
Thank you so much, Chris. I love what you told your students. The world has indeed changed. It is going to be a hybrid, and this actually, what you have shared is actually very well aligned with just a very recent report by EduCourse. They have this online EduCourse 2022 report, Teaching and Learning Edition. In this report, you read backwards, the outstanding impression or trends or the sense that get from the entire community, including education technology community, is hybrid. Work, life, study, education, however, we are in hybrid. And the technology is, of course, behind it, right? But when it comes to teaching and learning, pedagogy is still the key.
So I'm going to take us on a slightly different direction, but before I do that, I'm going to get an impact. I saw all three of your heads nodding in various ways when Young was talking about the issues that he was dealing with and struggling with. And we had a nice conversation with him, but I want to make sure you didn't have a final point to make, because we went right away to Chris, and I think one or two of you didn't have a chance to comment on what Young was saying. Does anyone remember back that far and want to jump in on that? Christine, Bethany? Christine?
Young, if you can just repeat your the essence of your question or your point, that would help us.
And now I have to remember my question. God, that's very hard. So no. I think it's a non-conversation. Really has to do with purpose of education, because on this show, all of us have talked a lot about what's the purpose of education, the growth of individuals, student strength and autonomy. We've talked a lot about, and so my own concern is on the student side, less on the content side, because I really believe right now, if you want to learn something, you can. So how do you grow students? And that's really the essence of the basis of the question. So because I'm whenever you impose on rubric standards, whatever level you're creating, it's possible you might create a homogeneous experience for a very diverse student population. So that was really the gist of the question.
You got to remember that his recent book is on self-determined learning, and my recent research is on self-directed learning. So we're coming, and Chris is in Punya's as well. So we're coming at it from the student-centered side and the non-rubric, if you will, for the most part, student-generated, and in fact, I was saying the episode this semester, I had students create an alternative syllabus based on their input, and we could get rid of mine and let's see what they're really interested in doing and addressing and so forth. So we're both, Young and I are both really interested in this self-determinedness, self-directedness, And we're wondering how that fits within people who are adapting models from Quality Matters.
If I may just add one, that's also fits what Chris was talking about. Where is online learning, hybrid learning, where's the world is going? You know, we're talking about technology, is not innovation, and education itself is shifting. So that's where, you know, we think about the definition when Punya talking about the purpose, the goals of education, and is even course the right level of analysis. So that's just really to have a discussion about this. Thank you.
I think, you know, to answer that question, it's important to look a little bit at some of the things that are in the rubric, because I would say it absolutely supports students being self-directed learners, right? So let me just give you some examples. Are students welcomed into your course? Do they know the first day who their instructor is? Do they know the purpose of the course? So think about it this way. When we teach face-to-face, we have this crucial first day of class, right? Where we introduce ourselves, we meet our students, we talk about topics of the course. That is so frequently forgotten when we teach online, right? That is something fundamental. So making sure students feel welcomed, making sure that they have a sense of belonging, making sure they know how to communicate with each other, with their instructor, making sure they have the technology that they need to do well, making sure that their content supports them doing well in assignments. They have multiple opportunities of applying what they're learning, that we're creating a more active learning online. All of this supports being a more self-directed learner. Right. So even things like ungrading or having students source their own content, all of that can still be done with the rubric, right?
Because it's non-prescriptive.
Yes, keep in mind that it's not, here's how you design your course. It's a way to evaluate, do you have these fundamental research supported things, these best practices that online educators and online students have said again and again, this matters to us. It's important. It matters to my satisfaction. It matters to my learning. And what we create with QM, when we have this peer review process of another faculty providing feedback, which you can, choose to put, institute in your course or not, is you finally have an opportunity to be an advocate for the online student. Where else do we have that opportunity? Even in student evaluations of instructions, most often they are not targeted to online learning. And in some cases, you're even asking students about their physical classroom spaces, even if they're 100% online student, right? And even with that, we're talking about online teaching. So where are those questions about, could you navigate your course well? Right? Even things just about web-based design. So all of these things, when you look at your rubric, it really is, am I supporting students? Again, I would love to hear a pedagogical approach where you look at the rubric and you say, I just can't do this with my course. This just doesn't benefit my students.
Bethany, I'll stop you there. I didn't ask the impact questions I wanted to ask about teachers, and we have just 2.5 minutes left. I have to do the introduction for the next session, but I wonder if one of you could address teachers who are watching this, graduate students who are watching this, how can they get involved? I realize they can get some kind of certificate. We talked about pre-show from Quality Matters or Quality Matters designation next to their title. They passed the Quality Matters 1 or 2, or what are some professional developments that people could get and get involved in Quality Matters? If anyone can answer that in a minute or so.
So I can take a first shot at this one. So we do have many different roles that people can attain at Quality Matters. One of them is to become a QM certified peer reviewer. And so that by taking our professional development, they learn how to apply the rubric to an online course. And that allows them to serve on those review teams, which is, honestly, it's such a wonderful professional learning experience for them. And they get to give back to the community. They get to earn stipends. They get to share their knowledge of online learning and what works. So that's another great opportunity. So besides our teaching online certificate, people can become QM certified course reviewers. They can become QM certified program reviewers as well, and master reviewers.
Thanks. That's just what I wanted to end with this show. What a wonderful show. We got it a lot of depth and breadth related to quality and online learning, really about teaching and learning in general, in all of life. And that to me is an excellent show. So I want to thank all three of you for taking time out to be with us today. And I think my co-hosts are in agreement with me on that. And maybe we need to bring you back to talk about other things someday, because this hour went really fast. And the next show, we get to show 106. We're going to go up to Canada and down to South America and into Peru, because we're going to hear from the Center for Global Education in Edmonton. And they're going to involve a couple teachers who are in Peru and Argentina in that show. So we'll hear about interesting things related to taking it global and getting kids engaged in projects, cross-cultural projects, and project-based learning to get them excited about their learning again, motivated and so forth. So it should be an excellent show as well. I hope some of you can join.